welcome to the Alpine Valley School podcast. I'm your host, Missa Gallivan, a former AVS student, graduate, and a current staff member. Today's show is all about community. More than just providing us a dose of the warm fuzzies every now and again, community is a particularly important part of the experience at Alpine Valley School. Unlike traditional schools, which provide parents and family members with hard data on their students' progress and performance, Sudbury schools produce results that are considerably softer. Let me give you an example. It's Sunday night and time for the weekly call with the grandparents. Mom gets on the phone with her own mom and dad and talks them through how all the kids are doing. If her kids are in a traditional school, she might say something like, "John got an A on his history test and is third chair in the jazz band." The grandparents are very impressed. If John is a student at Alpine Valley School, she might say, "John served on judicial committee this week and spent the rest of his time building an igloo out of cardboard boxes." In my experience, this makes for a different conversation entirely. Without regular progress reports, it can be easy to lose sight of the usefulness of an alternative education. How do you know if your child is learning anything? How do you know if they're going to be okay? The answer I typically give is trust. But there's another alternative, especially if you're feeling a little short on trust at the moment. Look at the end result. And by that I mean the AVS graduates. Alpine Valley School graduates are a great example of what to expect from this type of education. These people spent multiple years building cardboard igloo forts, and they turned out all right. Not only that, they have the benefit of age and wisdom, and can look back on their experiences and say exactly what all that fishing and guitar playing and drawing helped them accomplish. For me, it resulted in a successful and fulfilling career. I spent all my time at Alpine Valley organizing events, planning parties, putting on shows, and after graduation went on to be a project manager for a large corporation. Looking back, I can draw a direct link between those two experiences when, at the time, I thought I was just having fun. Graduates are the real test for this education system, and honestly, the main reason I started this podcast. These recordings are here for you, brave parents, whenever you need a shot in the arm or a way to make those Sunday phone calls a little less awkward. And should you need another parent's perspective, my guest this week, Erin Cure, has a very unique take. Not only is Erin a parent of 2 AVS students, one of whom just graduated, he also hired 2 AVS grads. In addition, he's full of great advice on how to deal with those moments when your confidence is shaken. Here's our interview. Hi, Erin. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, no problem.
So I would love if you would start by introducing yourself.
Well, I'm Erin Cure. I have 2 daughters who have gone to Alpine Valley School. We've been involved with AVS for about 7 years. Both of my girls were in a charter school, and they were doing all right, but just weren't thrilled with how they were feeling and dealing with school, and decided to look for other options. We came up and visited AVS and knew right away it was the place for our girls. And we moved up that summer and haven't looked back.
Wow, that's great. So what was your first impression of AVS then? What do you remember about, the early days of having your kids enrolled?
Well, we first started looking at AVS after we read Free at Last, and kind of had that notion when we came and looked at the school. And we didn't really see all the things that we saw and read about in the book, but we saw kids who were genuinely happy, and they kind of knew who they were. We walked in on a couple of discussions that were just obviously deeper than you would typically see with kids of that age. And we saw a couple of judicial committee cases and saw kids taking ownership of their actions, and just things that they said, those are the kinds of girls that I want to raise. And we chose to move up here. And I can't say it isn't without doubt. And looking back on the last 7 years, I absolutely wouldn't change a thing. But in those first years, it was kind of difficult as a parent to keep pushing that I believe button. Generally, you have parent-teacher conferences, and you have all the other parents that you can compare yourself against, and you know that that's you're doing the right thing, that your children are progressing at the right level and they're just where they're supposed to be, and that you can always help and you can get tutors and you can do whatever you need to do. And Alpine Valley is a completely different environment, and you don't get that feedback. And when you talk to your kids about what they did at school today, they, oh, nothing, or we played, or we went to the park, and you don't get that feedback. And you just have to keep telling yourself over and over and over that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm doing the right thing. But you eventually start to see little snippets. And in our case, my two girls were polar opposites. One was a complete rule follower and the other was the opposite. And what I saw over a couple of years is they started to come back towards the middle. They both started to understand that the freedom they had was theirs. They could choose what to do, what to believe, what rules to follow, what not to do, and handle the consequences accordingly. And so it was really great to see them grow and mature and start to become the adults that we wanted to raise.
That's a really powerful statement, that the freedom they had was theirs. I like that. So when you had those moments of doubts and you needed to keep pushing the I believe button, did you have any tips that you could share with people who are in a similar situation, who need that hit of confidence at the moment?
Absolutely. The AVS community is really strong, and you need to get plugged into that, because talking to other parents and talking to parents of recent graduates and not so recent graduates and talking to the graduates themselves are a constant reinforcement that we are doing the right thing, and that the freedom that we're allowing our kids to explore and to take control of is really pushing them down the path that they need to be on. Some of the graduates are just amazing. They just impressed me so much, just being able to talk to them and say, you know what are you guys doing now? And, oh, I've decided to go and pursue a dance career, or I've gone around the world a dozen times, or I've decided to go down this path and I'm being completely successful, even though I've had no training and didn't have anything other than a small desire when I got there. So between the graduates and the parents of those graduates who have finally figured out that, yes, this works, and I'm not exactly sure how, but I'm 100% in support of it, are what really makes it work.
That's great. So the conversations with the graduates in particular were really meaningful for you.
Absolutely. Anytime chance I get to be around them, I just know that we're on the right path.
Yeah. Do you remember an experience you had interacting with a graduate, maybe early in your time of being enrolled, that was particularly meaningful for you?
I think a couple of times it was not so much an individual interaction, but just a collection of them coming to the potlucks and sitting down and just talking about somebody who literally had just graduated from high school 2 years ago, and they were pursuing, I sat down with Andreas one time, and he was telling me about his job and how he'd kind of got hired as the IT guy, but there really wasn't a job definition, and he was just expanding it and doing things and learning things along the way, and said, and now I fixed this printer that they hadn't had running in 2 years, and now it works and they can actually do their job. And little success stories like that just happened all the time. And it was so impressive just to listen to the discoveries that they'd made and the growth that they'd pushed. It was really empowering.
So come to events, talk to graduates, talk to their parents, feel better.
Exactly.
That's the process.
That's the process.
Okay, good. That's great. How do you explain, or how did you, when your kids were both enrolled, how did you explain the school to your family?
My family was pretty supportive. My mom was actually the one that gave us Free at Last to read and said, this is a really cool thing. I think you should take a look at it. But they had their doubts too. It was great theoretically. It read really well in the book, but in process, well, what are they doing? Are they learning math? How are they going to be able to, what are they doing for history and social studies? And so we got the same kinds of questions. And we, again, started to doubt ourselves, because if they're having these doubts, well, maybe we should too. And so going back to the community and being part of it, and just grab a graduate and have some coffee. Just sit down and talk, and you'll feel it all again, that reassurance that, oh yeah, they're going to be okay. We're doing the right thing. And then you can continue to enroll them and get them involved too. I've definitely brought my parents to events, and they've sat and talked to some of the graduates, and they kind of get that same feeling, oh yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, your oldest, Katie, is now one of those graduates. So congratulations on that, first of all.
Thanks.
And I'm curious what you saw her experience like in that diploma process, going through and graduating from AVS. For those who aren't aware, is a pretty challenging process and asks a lot of the individuals who step up and say, okay, I would like an AVS diploma. And Katie, to me, it looked like pretty much sailed through that process with flying colors, but I'm curious what her experience was like at home.
Katie was an interesting challenge from day one, because Katie was a rule follower, and so she often would come home and just, okay, I have to do this. The teacher said to do these 30 problems, so I'm going to do them. And we kind of knew we were at the end of that when she came home and she was in tears doing her homework. And I said, well, what's wrong? She said, well, this problem, it says the ancient Egyptians used to do long division this way, and we don't do it anyway that way anymore because it takes too long and it's very difficult. Do these problems the 30 ways that the Egyptians used to do them. And she said, this is stupid. This is insane. Why would I do this? And we knew right then that it was time to do something else, because if even our rule follower was having problems with the rules, then it was time to change. And so when we came to AVS, we saw her trying to follow the rules and trying to be the one and being the teacher's pet, only there were no teachers, and to try to follow and do all the homework, only there was no homework. And so she kind of struggled, and it was silent, and she didn't really ask for help, but we could see that she was having a little trouble adapting. And then she kind of got into the groove, and a couple of years later started getting more and more involved and became a chore checker and became various things, set various positions, and ended up at the end sitting as the school meeting chair and being on the JC committee and serving in a lot of leadership positions that I don't think I would have ever seen her in before that, just because she'd accepted kind of who she was and realized that, there were rules and she could choose whether or not to follow them. And so she came a lot more towards the middle, and I really like where she's come. So having said that, when she went through the diploma process, she kind of did sail through it, and she put a lot of time into it and a lot of thought, and she took it very seriously, but at the same time, she didn't take it too seriously. It didn't become this overwhelming thing that she had to do exactly right, and if she didn't, she realized it was her process, and she took ownership of it and was actually in charge of it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of theme kind of ownership and responsibility. Is that something that you've seen with both your kids?
I really have. So when Mackenzie started the school, she was completely opposite. The teacher would say, jump, and while Katie would say, how high, Kinsey would say, F you. And so it was a slightly different meeting there. And it was fun to watch Mackenzie turn around and start coming towards the middle. She realized that she could look at those rules and be part of them. She could change them if she didn't like them, and could decide that, hey, I may not follow this one and I may get in trouble for that, but so be it. And so she really, again, came towards the middle. So both of them kind of ended up with this. I realize that there are some things that I have to do, but I can choose whether or not I let them impact me, and I can choose how I handle them.
Wow. That's a good story. I like hearing that. So here's how I know that you are definitely invested. You have 2 AVS graduates working for you.
We do, actually. So two of the recent graduates have both shown talent for kind of what we do. James Cashavos graduated about 3 or 4 years ago, and we were looking for someone to do some technical IT work and to become a security professional. And James had been working for another friend of ours and was looking for something different. He didn't want to be your typical IT support guy. He wanted a challenge. And so we had an opportunity to take on an intern and say, this is really what we're looking for, and to train him to become a security professional. And he's just gone through the roof. He's exceeded every expectation we could have of him. He's enjoying what he's doing, I think, and just is really good at it. He's good at hacking websites. He's good at doing technical work, and he just got a very difficult to obtain network penetration testing certification that he's the only one in the company that has it. And he just continues to find new things and continues to reset our expectations of what an employee should be. So we really like having him around. And then we recently needed a salesperson and needed somebody to bring on and train and actually do some inside sales work. And Brandon Murphy, who has always been kind of outgoing and outspoken and can meet anybody, was available, and we brought him on, and he's, again, doing the same thing. He wants to prove himself. And like every AVS grad I know, they take a challenge head on and they do it 120%. It's anything I can do to show you that I am doing the right thing, that I am actually capable of doing this, and not only doing it, but excelling at it and showing you that I love what I do. So I'm really thrilled with both of them and look forward to hiring some more.
That's good. That was going to be my next question, if you would hire more graduates. Not that necessarily, I'm fishing, but that's good. So if I were in a position where, I had a company and I was looking at 2 candidates, and one of them was an AVS graduate, and let's say the other one was somebody who has maybe the same or similar skill set, but a different educational background, what would you say to me that to kind of push that over the edge? Like, what do you see about the AVS grads that would make them a compelling employee?
Well, the AVS grads haven't been beat down. They know that they can do anything, and they're not afraid to try. And the other thing that I really like about an AVS grad is they're not afraid to fail. Failure is one of the best things that we can do. We learn from it. It gives us opportunities to grow, to change, to find out things about ourselves. And I've seen AVS grads jump in and take something on and just have it fail miserably. And where you would expect them to just get completely put down and discouraged, they're like, oh, well, I think I'm going to try that differently next time. And that just puts a smile on my face. That's exactly the right attitude to say, hey, we may not always make it on the first try, but as long as we keep up and keep fighting, we can definitely get there.
That's wonderful. So in addition to all of this, you are one of the founding members of the Friends of Alpine Valley School group, right?
Right.
So what prompted you to either, I don't know if you started it or you joined, but what prompted you to be a part of that organization?
Well, I saw that there were a lot of things that the staff was doing, planning events and planning potlucks and the Snow Mountain Ranch trip and those kinds of things. And they were getting bogged down and they were distracted from what they really wanted to do, which was be there for the students. And so we founded FOABs to take some of that responsibility off and just be a group where parents could get involved with the school and not have to directly impact the day-to-day operations, but be able to support and feel like we were contributing, and to take some of that load off of the staff so that they could focus on what they really wanted to be there to do. So that's really why we started FOABs.
Well, let me take this opportunity to say thank you, that you guys have done a tremendous job, and you have, in fact, relieved a great deal of pressure from us as staff members, and all of your efforts are truly, truly appreciated.
Great, and thanks. it's good to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can other AVS community members get involved with the Friends of AVS if they want to?
They should definitely just reach out to one of the FOABs members or go to Alpine Valley School /FOABs, I think actually redirects to there. But just contact one of us, pull us aside, grab us at a potluck and say, hey, how can I help out? We definitely take all the help we can get.
I'm sure. So I want to just close today and ask if you have a favorite memory of either something that you've done at school or your kids have done, just a favorite memory of AVS.
Actually, one of the best times I had at AVS, we were at Snow Mountain Ranch, and it was the first year that we had kind of taken over the cooking. Before the first year we went up, everybody was kind of making their own meals. And even though it's a fairly large kitchen, they try to run 20 or 25 families through there to make their each individual meals was kind of hectic, to say the least. And so we volunteered to make the meals of Snow Mountain Ranch. And everybody kind of just pitched in and showed up and how can I help, and hung out in the kitchen and talked and ate and just had a great time. And it was that feeling of community and togetherness and that we're all in it together that really solidified for me that this is the place not only that I want my girls to be, but it's a place that I want to be, and I want to get involved and help it grow any way I can.
Wonderful. And I think we talk a lot about the student experience, but not always so much what it's like to be a parent. And I think that's just as important for many people.
Yeah, and to be able to be involved and support the students and just to see them just on occasion and get those glimpses of them becoming those free adults. That's really what it's all about, and that's what really makes it worth doing.
Well, Erin, we are so glad that you and your family are part of the community, and you have all made such a difference. So thank you very much, and I so appreciate you coming on the show today. I think you had some great stories, really interesting point of view. So thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
It's a unique experience trying to define an AVS education. And I think Erin really hit the nail on the head when he encouraged folks to get involved. The more people in the community you can connect with, especially graduates, the more you may come to feel comfortable with this radical take on education. One great way to stay involved in the AVS community is to join the Friends of Alpine Valley School. If you want to become a member, you can contact Erin directly, as he indicated. Or if you want to do something right this minute, you can send an email to friends@alpinevalley.school.com. Again, that's friends, FRIENDS, @alpinevalley.school.com, and ask how you can get involved. Alternately, you are more than welcome to simply show up at public events and participate in the community. We would love to have you. To find out what's coming up, visit the AVS webpage, where we'll post upcoming gatherings. Come to an event and get to know your fellow community members. I know that you'll be glad you did. If you want to hear more stories from AVS graduates from the comfort of your own home, I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or any other app where you get your podcasts. In addition, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and get all the new episodes of the podcast, plus any other videos we produce. I would also love it if you'd share this podcast with any friends or family members you think might benefit. It can be a great way to bridge the gap or start a conversation with someone you think might be interested in our model of education. Of course, you can always encourage interested parties to set up a tour with us, either by calling the school directly or contacting us via email. As you heard from Erin, seeing the school in real life, in person, can make a big difference. All of the details on how to set up a tour are available on our website at www.alpinevalleySchool.com/enroll. That does it for the show today. Thanks so much to Erin for coming on and talking about his family's experience with AVS. And thanks again to all the members of the Friends of Alpine Valley School who do so much to help us. Thanks, as always, to Isaac Eliason, who composed all the music you hear on the show. I'm Missa Gallivan. This is the Alpine Valley School podcast, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks. Tune in then for more stories about real learning for real life.